Empress Yuri stood at the tall window of her throne room and watched the stars. She had ruled the Velen Empire for 60 years. She had seen wars begin and end. She had signed treaties with 100 different species. She had built stations and cities across the galaxy. But tonight, she felt very tired. Behind her, the council members were arguing again. Their voices filled the great room like angry birds fighting over food. She did not turn to look at them. She already knew what they were saying. "The humans are becoming a problem," said Councillor Baum. His voice was sharp and cold. "They multiply too fast. They take jobs from proper Velen citizens. We must restrict their rights before it is too late." Yuri closed her eyes. She had heard these words many times before. Baum was old, even by Velen standards. He remembered a time before humans joined the Empire. He did not like change. "Your Majesty," Baum continued, "I have reports from dozens of stations. Humans are organizing. They are demanding better treatment. If we show weakness now, they will ask for more." Yuri finally turned around. The council members fell silent. Even after 60 years, her gaze still held power. Her skin glowed with the soft blue light that all Velens carried within them. Her eyes were the color of deep space. "What do they ask for?" she said quietly. Baum looked surprised by the question. "They want access to higher education. They want to work as engineers and doctors. They want to own property on core worlds." "These sound like reasonable things," Yuri said. The council chamber went very quiet. Baum's face twisted with something that looked like disgust. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "humans are useful workers. They are strong and they do not complain much. But they are not like us. They cannot see in darkness. They live such short lives. They are limited." Yuri looked at the old counselor for a long moment. Then she looked at the other council members. Some of them nodded along with Baum. Others looked uncomfortable but said nothing. She realized something in that moment. She did not know the truth anymore. She had been sitting in this throne room for too long. All her information came from people like Baum, people with their own plans and hatreds. She had forgotten what the real empire looked like. That night she called Captain D. Sung to her private chambers. D. Sung was the head of her secret guard. He was loyal and clever, and he never asked unnecessary questions. "I need to leave the palace," Yuri told him. "Secretly, I want to see how my people truly live." D. Sung did not look surprised. He had served the Empress for 30 years. He knew her moods. "Where does your Majesty wish to go?" he asked. "Somewhere far from the core worlds. Somewhere with humans and Velans living together. I want to see the truth that Councillor Baum tries to hide from me." D. Sung thought for a moment. "There is a trading station called Hana 7. It sits on the edge of Velan space. Many species live there, including humans. It is not a beautiful place, but it is honest." "Perfect," Yuri said. "Prepare a small ship. I will travel as a common citizen. You will stay here and pretend I am sick with a minor illness." "Your Majesty, this is dangerous," D. Sung said, but he was already bowing. He knew she had made up her mind. 3 days later, Yuri stepped off a transport shuttle onto orbital station Hana 7. She wore simple gray clothes and had dimmed her natural glow to look like an ordinary Velan. She carried a small bag with basic supplies. She called herself Sue. The station was nothing like the palace. The air smelled of metal and oil and cooking food. The corridors were narrow and crowded. People pushed past her without a second look. Nobody bowed. Nobody made way for her. It was wonderful. Yuri walked for hours, exploring every level of the station. She saw markets where vendors sold strange foods from a dozen worlds. She saw repair shops and medical clinics and small temples for different religions. She saw children playing games she did not recognize. And everywhere she saw humans and Velans working together. A Velan woman sold fabric while a human man carried her boxes. A human doctor treated a Velan patient in a small clinic. 2 teenagers, one human and one Velan, sat together sharing a meal and laughing at something on a tablet screen. This was not what Baum had described. He spoke of tension and danger, but Yuri saw only ordinary people living ordinary lives. As the station's artificial night began, the corridors grew quieter. Most shops closed their doors. Yuri realized she should find a place to sleep, but she was not tired yet. She wanted to see more. She wandered into the lower levels of the station. These areas were older and less maintained. The lights flickered sometimes. The walls showed patches of rust. This was where the poorest workers lived. Yuri felt a strange mix of shame and curiosity. She had never seen poverty like this in person. In the palace, everything was clean and perfect. Here, people made do with what they had. She passed rows of small rooms, barely big enough for a bed. She passed a communal kitchen where tired workers ate simple meals. She passed a broken water fountain that someone had tried to fix with tape and wire. Then she saw something that made her stop. At the end of a narrow corridor, there was a small repair bay. The door was open. Inside, surrounded by broken machinery and scattered tools, a young human man sat alone on an overturned crate. The repair bay had no working lights. It was almost completely dark, but the man held a small device in his mouth that produced a thin beam of light. His hands were covered in black grease. In front of him, balanced on his knees, was a thick book filled with diagrams and technical writing. He was studying. Yuri had seen many strange things in her long life, but this image struck her in a way she did not expect. Velans could see perfectly in darkness. They had evolved that way, but humans had not. This man was fighting against his own biology just to learn something new. She watched him for several minutes. He turned pages carefully with his dirty fingers. Sometimes he would pause and look up at the ceiling, as if trying to memorize what he had read. Then he would nod to himself and continue. His face was young but tired. He had the look of someone who worked too hard and slept too little, but his eyes were bright with something that Yuri recognized. It was hunger, not hunger for food, but hunger for knowledge, for understanding, for something better. Yuri leaned forward without thinking, and her foot scraped against the metal floor. The man looked up immediately. He removed the light from his mouth and pointed it toward the door. The beam caught Yuri's face. "Hello," he said. His voice was calm, not frightened. "Are you lost? Do you need help with something?" Yuri found that she could not answer right away. She was the Empress of 1,000 worlds, and she had been struck speechless by a young man with a flashlight and a dream. The young man waited patiently for Yuri to answer. He did not seem worried or suspicious. He simply looked at her with calm, curious eyes. "I am sorry," Yuri finally said. "I did not mean to disturb you. I was just walking and I saw the light." The man smiled. It was a warm smile that changed his whole face. "Not many people come down to this level at night. Are you new to the station?" "Yes," Yuri said. "I arrived today. My shuttle had some problems. I am waiting for repairs." "Ah, that happens a lot here," the man said. He stood up and wiped his hands on a rag that hung from his belt. "The docking systems are old. I keep telling the station manager to upgrade them, but he says there is no budget." He walked toward her and held out his hand. It was a human greeting that Yuri had seen but never experienced. She hesitated for only a moment before taking it. His grip was firm but gentle. "My name is T-Ho," he said. "I work as a mechanic here. I fix things that break." "I am Sue," Yuri said, using her false name. "I am a traveler." "Nice to meet you, Sue." T-Ho looked at her more closely. "You look tired and maybe a little lost. Would you like some tea? I was about to take a break anyway." Yuri knew she should be careful. She was alone in a strange place with a stranger, but something about this young man made her feel safe. His eyes were honest. His manner was open. "Yes," she said, "tea would be nice." T-Ho led her into the repair bay. It was small and crowded with parts and tools, but it was surprisingly clean. He had organized everything carefully. Each tool had its place. Each box was labeled. He pulled out a second crate for her to sit on and heated water in a small electric kettle. The tea he made was simple but good. It warmed Yuri from the inside. "So what were you studying?" she asked, pointing to the book. Ti-Ho looked almost embarrassed. He picked up the book and showed her the cover. It was a technical manual about advanced propulsion systems, the kind of knowledge usually reserved for high-level engineers. "I am trying to understand how ship engines really work," he said. "Not just how to fix them, but how to design them, how to make them better." Yuri was surprised. This was complex material. Even some Velen engineers struggled with these concepts. "Where did you get this book?" she asked. "I found it in a recycling bin," Ti-Ho said with a small laugh. "Someone threw it away because the cover was damaged, but the pages inside are fine. I have been studying it for 3 months now." "That is impressive," Yuri said, and she meant it. "But why study so hard? The Empire does not allow humans to become certified engineers." Ti-Ho nodded slowly. He did not seem angry about this fact, just accepting. "I know," he said. "Maybe that will never change. Maybe I will spend my whole life fixing broken machines in places like this. But that is not the point." "Then what is the point?" Ti-Ho was quiet for a moment. He looked down at his hands, still stained with grease that would not wash away completely. "I have a younger sister," he said. "Her name is Myra. She is very smart, much smarter than me. She is studying medicine on a scholarship at a proper school on a core world." "You must be proud of her," Yuri said. "I am, but the scholarship does not pay for everything. I work extra shifts to send her money for food and books and a small room to sleep in." Ti-Ho smiled again, but this time there was something sad in it. "I want her to have the chances I never had." Yuri felt something tighten in her chest. She thought of the council members, with their expensive clothes and comfortable lives. They spoke of humans as if they were simple creatures with no dreams or ambitions. But here was a young man working himself to exhaustion just to give his sister a better future. "But that does not explain why you study," she said softly. Ti-Ho looked up at her. The light from his small flashlight reflected in his eyes. "Because someday things might be different," he said. "Maybe not in my lifetime, maybe not in my sister's lifetime. But someday a human child might look at someone like me and think, if he could learn these things with just a flashlight and a broken book, then maybe I can too." He paused and took a sip of his tea. "My people come from a planet called Earth," he continued. "It is small and far away, and most Velens have never heard of it, but on Earth we faced many terrible things. Ice covered the world, diseases killed millions. We fought each other in horrible wars. Everything tried to destroy us." "But you survived," Yuri said. "We survived," Ti-Ho agreed. "Because we never stopped trying, we never stopped learning, we never stopped hopping. That is what humans do. We keep going, even when everything seems impossible." Yuri sat in silence for a long moment. In 60 years as Empress, she had heard countless speeches and arguments. Politicians told her what she wanted to hear. Advisors calculated every word for maximum advantage. But this young mechanic spoke with simple honesty that cut through all the noise. "I think I understand," she said finally. Ti-Ho laughed softly. "I am sorry. I talk too much when I am tired. You probably think I am strange." "No," Yuri said quickly. "I think you are remarkable." The word came out before she could stop it. Ti-Ho looked surprised, then embarrassed. He waved his hand dismissively. "I am just a mechanic," he said. "There is nothing remarkable about that." But Yuri knew he was wrong. There was something deeply remarkable about refusing to accept limits, about building light in the darkness, about hopping for a future you might never see. They talked for several more hours. Ti-Ho told her about his childhood on a mining colony. He told her about the accident that killed his parents and left him to raise Myra alone. He told her about the long journey to Hana 7 and the years of hard work that followed. In return, Yuri told him what she could. She said she was from a comfortable family but had grown restless with her sheltered life. She said she wanted to see how ordinary people lived. It was not entirely a lie. As the station's artificial dawn began to brighten the corridors, Yuri realized she did not want to leave. For the first time in decades, she had found a conversation that felt real. "I should let you sleep," Tiho said, standing up and stretching. "You must be exhausted from your journey." "What about you?" Yuri asked. "You have not slept at all." "I have a shift starting in 2 hours," he said with a shrug. "I will sleep tonight." Yuri shook her head. This man worked all day, studied all night, and sent his money to his sister. He had nothing left for himself. "Tiho," she said slowly, "would it be acceptable if I came back tomorrow? I would like to watch you work. Perhaps I could even help." Tiho looked surprised again. "You want to help me fix machines?" "I want to learn," Yuri said, and she was surprised to find that she meant it. Tiho studied her face for a moment. Whatever he saw there made him smile. "All right, Sue," he said. "Come back tomorrow. I will teach you what I know. But I warn you, the work is hard and the pay is bad." Yuri smiled back at him. "I think I can handle that." She left the repair bay as the station came alive around her. Workers hurried past, starting their daily routines. Vendors opened their shops. Children ran through the corridors on their way to school. Yuri walked among them, invisible and anonymous. And for the first time in 60 years, she felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. Tomorrow, she would return to the mechanic with the flashlight and the impossible dreams. Tomorrow, she would begin to understand what the Empire had been missing. Tomorrow, everything would start to change. 2 weeks passed on Hana 7, and Yuri discovered that she had never truly lived before. Every morning, she woke in the small room she had rented near the lower markets. The bed was hard and the walls were thin. She could hear her neighbors arguing, cooking, and laughing through the metal panels. It was nothing like the silent luxury of the palace. She loved it. After a quick meal, she would make her way to Tiho's repair bay. He was always there before her, already working on some broken machine or studying his manuals. He would look up when she arrived and smile that warm smile of his. "Good morning, Sue," he would say, "ready to get dirty." And she was. She learned to hand him tools before he asked for them. She learned the names of different parts and what they did. She learned to spot the difference between a loose connection and a broken circuit. Her hands, which had never done hard work, became rough and strong. She also learned things about the station that no report could have told her. She learned that the human workers on Hana 7 were paid less than Velen workers for the same jobs. She learned that human children could not attend the better schools without special permission that was almost never granted. She learned that many humans lived in crowded rooms while Velen families had comfortable apartments. But she also learned that these unfair rules did not stop humans from building lives. They opened small businesses. They taught their children at home. They helped each other through hard times. They did not wait for permission to create community. One afternoon, a young woman arrived at the repair bay. She had bright eyes and a quick smile that reminded Yuri immediately of someone. "Myra," Tiho said, jumping up from his work. He wrapped his sister in a tight hug that lifted her off her feet. "What are you doing here? You should be studying." "I had a break between exams," Myra said, laughing. "I wanted to see my favorite brother." "I am your only brother." "Still my favorite." Tiho turned to Yuri with pride shining in his eyes. "Sue, this is my sister Myra. She is going to be a doctor." Myra bowed politely to Yuri. "It is nice to meet you. My brother mentioned you in his messages. He says you are a hard worker." Yuri felt a strange warmth at this simple compliment. In the palace, People praised her constantly, but their words were empty. Tiho's praise meant something because it was honest. "Your brother is a good teacher," Yuri said. Myra stayed for 3 days. Yuri watched the siblings together and saw a bond that she had never experienced herself. They teased each other constantly, but their love was obvious. When Myra talked about her studies, Tiho listened with complete attention. When Tiho worried about money, Myra told him to stop being foolish. On the second night, Myra sat with Yuri in the repair bay while Tiho worked on a difficult repair. "Can I ask you something personal?" Myra said quietly. "Of course," Yuri replied. "Why are you really here? A Velen woman with your manner does not usually spend time in places like this." Yuri was careful with her answer. Myra was clever, perhaps too clever. "I wanted to see something real," Yuri said. "I grew up surrounded by comfortable lies. I wanted to understand how other people live." Myra nodded slowly. "That is a good reason. Most Velens do not care to understand us. They see humans as useful tools, not as people." "I am beginning to see that clearly now," Yuri said. Myra looked at her brother, who was cursing softly at a stubborn bolt. Her expression became serious. "He works too hard, you know. He sends me too much money. He studies when he should sleep. He gives everything to everyone else and keeps nothing for himself." "Why do you tell me this?" Yuri asked. "Because I see how he looks at you," Myra said simply. "And how you look at him. I think you care about him. I want you to know what kind of person he is." Yuri did not know how to respond to this. She had not thought about her feelings in such direct terms, but Myra's words planted a seed that would continue to grow. After Myra left to return to her studies, Yuri found herself watching Tiho more carefully. She noticed how he always helped customers who could not afford to pay. She noticed how he shared his food with hungry workers. She noticed how he never complained, no matter how tired he was. One evening, she asked him a question that had been bothering her for days. "Tiho, do you ever feel angry at the Empire at how humans are treated?" He stopped working and thought carefully before answering. "Sometimes," he admitted. "When I see talented human children denied opportunities, when I hear about families being forced off their land, when politicians talk about us like we are animals. Yes, sometimes I feel very angry." "But you do not show it." "Anger is a tool," Tiho said. "Like a wrench or a torch. It can be useful if you control it, but if you let it control you, it just breaks things." He picked up his flashlight and turned it over in his hands. "I choose to build instead of break. Maybe that seems weak to some people, but buildings last longer than fires." Yuri thought about the council chambers, where anger and fear drove so many decisions. Counselor Baum was angry at humans because he was afraid of change. Other counselors were angry at Baum because they were afraid of him. Everyone was afraid of something. But Tiho was not afraid. He was simply determined. "Show me something," Yuri said suddenly. "Show me something that explains who you are." Tiho looked puzzled, but he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn photograph. It showed a blue and green planet floating in dark space. White clouds swirled across its surface. "This is Earth," he said. "The human home world. I have never been there. Most humans in the Empire have never been there, but we carry it with us anyway." Yuri took the photograph gently. The planet was beautiful, but it looked fragile against the vastness of space. "We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day," Tiho said. "The cold tried to freeze us. The heat tried to burn us. Diseases tried to destroy us. Predators tried to eat us. And we did terrible things to each other. Yet humans survived all of that," Yuri said. "More than survived. We built cities and art and science and music. We reached for the stars before we had any right to." Tiho took the photograph back and looked at it with something like love. "The universe is just another thing trying to kill us, and we have gotten very good at not dying." That night, after Tiho had finally fallen asleep at his workbench, Yuri stood alone in the corridor outside the repair bay. She had received a secret message from Captain D-Sung. The council was growing suspicious. Counselor Baum was pushing hard for new laws against humans. She needed to return soon. But she did not want to leave, not yet. She thought about Tiho's words. She thought about the flashlight and the broken book and the photograph of Earth. She thought about a species that refused to stop hopping, no matter how hard the universe pushed. She made a decision. Tomorrow, she would tell Tiho the truth. She would reveal who she really was, and she would offer him something that no human had ever been offered before. A chance to change everything. She looked up at the artificial stars painted on the station ceiling. They were poor imitations of real stars, but they still shone in the darkness, just like the people who lived beneath them. Yuri waited until the evening shift ended and the repair bay grew quiet. Tiho was cleaning his tools, arranging them in their proper places as he always did. His movements were slow and tired. He had worked 12 hours straight today. "Tiho," she said, "I need to tell you something." He looked up at her and smiled. "That sounds serious. Should I be worried?" Yuri took a deep breath. In 60 years of ruling an empire, she had given difficult orders and made painful choices. But this moment felt harder than all of them combined. "My name is not Sue," she said. "I have been lying to you since we met." Tiho's smile faded slowly. He put down the wrench he was holding and gave her his full attention. "All right," he said carefully, "then who are you?" Yuri let the dim glow that she had been hiding rise to the surface of her skin. The soft blue light filled the small repair bay. It was the distinctive glow of the imperial bloodline, brighter and purer than any common Velen could produce. "My name is Yuri," she said. "I am the Empress of the Velen Empire." Tiho stared at her. For a long moment he did not move or speak. Then he laughed short and harsh. "That is not a funny joke, Sue." "It is not a joke." Yuri reached into her bag and pulled out a small device. She activated it, and a holographic image appeared in the air between them. It showed her official portrait, dressed in the ceremonial robes of the Empress, sitting on the crystal throne. Tiho looked at the image. He looked at Yuri. He looked at the image again. His face went through several emotions: confusion, disbelief, understanding, and finally something that looked like disappointment. "I see," he said quietly. Yuri had expected many reactions: anger, fear, amazement, but disappointment cut deeper than any of those. "Tiho, please understand," she began. "Understand what?" His voice was calm but cold. "That everything was a lie, that you were studying me like some kind of experiment. Was this all just entertainment for a bored empress?" "No," Yuri said firmly. "That is not what this was. I came to Hana 7 because I wanted to see the truth. I stayed because I found something I did not expect." "And what was that?" "A friend," she said simply. "Perhaps the first real friend I have had in 60 years. Tiho was quiet. He sat down heavily on his usual crate and stared at the floor. The silence stretched between them like a physical weight. "I trusted you," he finally said. "I told you things about my life, my sister, my dreams. I thought you were just a kind stranger who wanted to learn about machines." "Everything I said was true," Yuri replied. "I was restless in my comfortable life. I did want to understand how other people live. The only lie was my name and position." "That is a very big lie." "Yes, it is, and I am sorry." Tiho looked up at her. His eyes were tired and hurt, but there was still that spark of stubborn strength that she had first noticed weeks ago. "Why tell me now?" he asked. "Why not just leave and go back to your palace?" Yuri sat down across from him. She no longer looked like an empress. She looked like a woman carrying a heavy burden. "Because I want to offer you something," she said. "I want you to come with me. I want you to be my imperial engineering advisor." Tiho blinked. "What?" "No human has ever held such a position. You would have access to the best laboratories and equipment in the Empire. You would help design the next generation of starships. You would show the entire galaxy what humans can achieve. T-Ho stood up abruptly and walked to the far end of the repair bay. He stood with his back to her, his shoulders tense. "You want to use me," he said, "like a symbol, a token human to make yourself look good." "No," Yuri said. "I want to use you like a key, to unlock a door that has been closed for too long." She walked toward him slowly. "I have spent 2 weeks watching you work. I have seen you solve problems that trained Velen engineers could not solve. I have seen you teach yourself things that should be impossible to learn without proper schooling. You are not a symbol, T-Ho. You are proof." "Proof of what?" "Proof that Counselor Baum and people like him are wrong. Proof that humans deserve every opportunity that Velens have. Proof that the Empire is stronger when it includes everyone." T-Ho turned around. His expression was unreadable. "And what about Myra? What about the people on this station? What about all the other humans who will never get this offer?" "That is why I need you," Yuri said. "I cannot change the Empire alone. I need someone who understands what humans have suffered, someone who can speak for them, someone they will trust." Before T-Ho could answer, a loud alarm began to blare throughout the station. Red warning lights flashed in the corridor outside. An automated voice spoke in calm but urgent tones. "Attention all residents. Life support failure detected in sections 7 through 12. Please evacuate to designated safety zones. This is not a drill." T-Ho's face changed immediately. He was no longer thinking about empresses or offers or hurt feelings. He was a mechanic, and something was broken. "Section 7 is the lower residential area," he said quickly. 3,000 people live there. The backup systems in that part of the station are old. If the main life support fails—" He did not finish the sentence. He grabbed his tool bag and his flashlight and ran for the door. "Wait," Yuri called after him. "Let the emergency teams handle it." T-Ho did not stop. "The emergency teams are on the upper levels. They will take 20 minutes to reach Section 7. I can be there in 5. He was gone before she could argue. Yuri stood alone in the repair bay for exactly 3 seconds. Then she followed him. The corridors were chaos. People ran in every direction, some heading for safety zones and others trying to reach family members in the affected areas. The alarm continued its steady warning. The lights flickered dangerously. Yuri caught up with T-Ho at an access junction. He was already prying open a maintenance panel. "You should not be here," he said without looking at her. "An Empress should not risk her life for a station like this." "A friend should not let another friend face danger alone," she replied. T-Ho glanced at her briefly. Something in his expression softened. "Can you hold this panel?" he asked. She grabbed the heavy metal plate and held it steady while he worked. They moved through the maintenance tunnels together, following the path toward the life support systems. What they found was not an accident. The main oxygen recyclers had been deliberately damaged. Control circuits had been cut in ways that would look like equipment failure to anyone who did not know better. Someone had sabotaged the station. "This was done on purpose," T-Ho said, his voice grim. "Someone wanted these people to die." Yuri felt cold anger rising in her chest. She thought of Counselor Baum and his hatred of humans. She thought of his agents and his schemes. She knew, with terrible certainty, who was responsible. "Can you fix it?" she asked. T-Ho was already examining the damaged systems. His flashlight moved from point to point, assessing the destruction. "Maybe," he said, "if I can reroute the power through secondary channels, if I can find replacement parts, if I have enough time." He looked at her with eyes that held no fear, only determination. "Help me," he said. "Tell me what to hold and what to move. I will do the rest." Yuri nodded. She had commanded fleets and governed planets. But in this moment, she followed the instructions of a human mechanic with nothing but a flashlight and an impossible determination to save lives. The clock was ticking. 3,000 people were running out of air. And in the darkness of a dying station, a friendship that had started with a lie was about to be tested by truth. Tiho worked faster than Yuri had ever seen anyone work before. His hands moved through the damaged machinery like water flowing through rocks, finding the path of least resistance. He did not hesitate or second-guess himself. Each decision was instant and precise. "Hold this wire here," he said, pointing to a sparking cable. "Do not let it touch the metal casing." Yuri grabbed the wire without question. It burned slightly against her palm, but she did not let go. "Now pass me the connector from my bag, the blue one." She found it and placed it in his waiting hand. He attached it to something she could not see in the darkness. The minutes stretched into something that felt like hours. Through the walls, Yuri could hear distant sounds of panic and fear. People were dying. Children were crying. And all of it depended on one man with a flashlight. Then the flashlight died. The small beam that had guided Tiho's work flickered twice and went dark. The batteries had finally given up. Yuri expected him to stop, to curse, to give up. But Tiho simply put the dead flashlight in his pocket and continued working by touch alone. "How can you do this?" she whispered. "You cannot see anything." "I have done this repair 100 times in my mind," he said calmly. "I know where every wire goes. I know how every part connects. Seeing is helpful, but it is not necessary." Yuri watched him in amazement. Or rather, she watched the darkness where she knew he was working. Her Velen eyes could see his outline, but she knew he was completely blind. Yet his hands never stopped moving. 20 minutes later, the lights came back on. The oxygen recyclers hummed to life with a sound that was more beautiful than any music Yuri had ever heard. Fresh air began flowing through the ventilation systems. The emergency alarms stopped their screaming. Tiho sat back against the wall, exhausted but triumphant. His face was covered in grease and sweat. His hands were cut in several places from working with sharp metal in the dark, but he was smiling. "It worked," he said simply. Yuri did not know what to say. She was an empress who had commanded armies and signed treaties, but she had never seen anything as impressive as what this man had just done. "You saved them all," she said. Tiho shook his head. "The system saved them. I just reconnected some wires." Before Yuri could argue, Captain D-Sung appeared at the entrance to the maintenance tunnel. He was accompanied by armed guards who immediately surrounded Yuri with protective formation. "Your Majesty," D-Sung said, his face tight with worry. "We received word of the sabotage. We came as quickly as we could." "It was Counselor Baum," Yuri said coldly. "He sent agents to damage the station. He wanted to blame humans for the deaths." D-Sung nodded grimly. "We have already detained several suspects. They are talking. The evidence against Baum is strong." Yuri stood up and brushed the dirt from her clothes. She was no longer a traveler named Sue. She was the Empress again, and she had work to do. But first, she turned back to Tiho. "You saved 3,000 lives tonight," she said. "Velens and humans both. You did it in the dark, without proper tools, without help from anyone but me, and you never hesitated." Tiho looked uncomfortable with the praise. "I did what anyone would do." "No," Yuri said firmly. "You did what only you could do, and the Empire needs people who can do impossible things." She held out her hand to him. "My offer still stands. Come with me. Help me change the Empire, not as a symbol or a token, but as a partner." Tiho looked at her hand for a long moment. Then he looked at the repaired systems around them. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out his dead flashlight. "All right," he said, "but I am keeping this. Someone needs to remember where we started." He took her hand and let her help him up. 3 weeks later, Empress Yuri addressed the entire empire in a live broadcast. Billions of beings across thousands of worlds watched as she spoke. "I have been your empress for 60 years, she began. "In that time I have made many decisions. Some were wise, some were foolish. But I always believed I was doing what was best for our people." She paused and let her gaze sweep across the camera, as if she could see every citizen watching. "I was wrong about some things. I was wrong to listen to voices of fear and hatred. I was wrong to judge entire species by the words of a few prejudiced counselors. I was wrong to stay in my palace while my people suffered." The council chambers behind her were silent. Counselor Baum's seat was empty. He had been arrested and stripped of all titles. His plans had been exposed for everyone to see. 3 weeks ago, I witnessed something remarkable. A human mechanic, working alone in the darkness with nothing but a simple flashlight, saved 3,000 lives. He could have fled to safety. He could have waited for others to solve the problem. Instead, he ran toward danger because that is who humans are. She gestured and T-Ho walked into the frame. He wore simple clothes, not the formal robes of a counselor. He looked uncomfortable with all the attention, but he stood straight and proud. "This is T-Ho. He is my new Imperial Engineering Advisor. He is the first human to hold such a position in our empire's history. He will not be the last." Yuri turned back to the camera. "Today, I am announcing new laws. Humans will have equal access to education at all levels. Humans will be allowed to own property on all worlds. Humans will be paid the same wages as Velans for the same work. Any discrimination against humans will be punished severely." She could imagine the reactions across the empire. Some would cheer, others would be angry. Change was always difficult. "I know this will not be easy. I know there will be resistance, but I have seen what humans can do when given a chance. They do not give up. They do not stop hopping. They build light in the darkness." She smiled slightly. "I think the Empire could learn something from that." After the broadcast ended, Yuri found T-Ho standing on the observation deck of the Imperial flagship. He was staring out at the stars, just as she had stared out at them from her throne room so many weeks ago. "You look worried," she said, coming to stand beside him. "I am thinking about all the people watching that broadcast," he said. "All the human children who heard what you said. All the ones who have been told their whole lives that they are less than Velans. Are you worried they will be disappointed?" T-Ho shook his head slowly. "I am worried they will expect too much. Change takes time. Laws are just words until people believe in them." "Then we will make them believe," Yuri said, "together." T-Ho reached into his pocket and pulled out his flashlight. He had repaired it. The small beam cut through the dim light of the observation deck. "Do you know why I kept studying all those years?" he asked. "Even when I knew I would never be certified, even when everyone told me it was pointless. You told me once, you wanted to inspire other human children." "That was part of it," T-Ho agreed. "But there was another reason. I wanted to prove something to myself. I wanted to know that I was not limited by what others believed about me." He turned off the flashlight and looked at Yuri. "Now I have a chance to prove it to everyone. That is a heavy responsibility." "It is," Yuri said, "but you will not carry it alone." She placed her hand over his, the one holding the flashlight. Her blue Velen glow mixed with the simple metal and glass of his human tool. "I spent 60 years as Empress, thinking I understood power," she said. "But you taught me something important. Real power is not sitting on a throne. Real power is refusing to give up, even when the lights go out." T-Ho smiled. It was the same warm smile she had seen that first night in the repair bay. "You know," he said, "when you first came to my workshop, I thought you were just a lost traveler looking for directions." "I was lost," Yuri admitted. "I just did not know it yet." "And now?" She looked out at the stars. Somewhere among them was Earth, the small blue planet that had produced such stubborn, hopeful, remarkable people. Somewhere out there were millions of humans waiting for a chance to prove themselves. "Now I think I am exactly where I need to be," she said. They stood together in silence, watching the stars. An empress and a mechanic, two people from different worlds who had found each other in the darkness. And somewhere in Tiho's pocket, a small flashlight waited patiently for the next time it would be needed. Because there would always be darkness somewhere in the universe. And there would always be someone willing to carry a light.